Um, so I'm Daniel from Automate 101, and we make the Atria portal. And I'm going to unpack a little bit about what that does for you later on. But first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Daniel Huell. Daniel is from the Asbury Group, and we've had a long history working with Daniel, and we're going to get him to share his most recent experience with Citrix Cloud and Atria, so that you get an understanding of what you can achieve from somebody who's done it in the real world. And then I'll explain a little bit of how Atria helps achieve these things. So Daniel, if you want to do a bit more of an introduction and talk us through your story.
Absolutely, Daniel. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I came on board at the Asbury Group about 2 years ago now, and we really, have taken the organization quite a long way. Last spring, we had an opportunity to onboard a new client, and we really wanted to take an opportunity to transform how we did things. And this is where, based on my past experience, Automate 101 would have been a great solution for us to be able to help and mitigate some of the problems we were facing as an organization. Dan, can you go to the next slide, please?
The process slide. Yep.
So, actually, I'm sorry. Back one up. There we go. So the situation we were facing last spring with this onboarding was we really had a lot of problems in our service desk. The engineering team was spending a lot of time actually, trying to fix provisioning errors, and it was costing us a lot of time, making these changes extremely expensive. At the same time, we also had our HR department saying, we want role-based account provisioning. So they wanted to really streamline the employee roles they had in the organization. So that intersection really made it a good opportunity for us to stop doing what we were doing and bring something new. And this is when Automate 101 really was added to our stack and really helped us achieve that. So the task was kind of daunting. We really had to go and work with our HR department and clearly identify all the IT resources in the organization, drive mappings, printers, applications, and then you can see that here in the columns. We have all these roles, and then if you look at the top column, it's all the resources. And we basically had an Excel spreadsheet, almost 170 rows wide, and basically we mapped out every role to every resource, and every X in this spreadsheet basically determines that employee role has access to that resource. It took about probably a little bit more than 80 man-hours over 3.5 days to get that done. But once we were able to do that, we were then able to create these roles using the Automate interface, and basically be able to say, okay, well, an accounting manager has access to these resources, and so on and so forth. So we've been able to basically create the roles and then assign all the resources. And now when we're looking at creating a user in the organization, we have the role. Our service desk can go in and check the role and automate, and the provisioning is done completely automatically. If we look at the amount of time that we've actually saved with this right now, it's pretty staggering. before we were talking about a lot of adds and deletes, and pretty much every time, the engineering team had to go in and fix typos or group assignments or name changes. But with this system, this approach, we've managed, easily 125 new employees and about 50 changes. And in the last, about 6 months, 4.5 months, we went live in June. We've clocked less than 4 hours of engineering time. And most of those questions were really around the fact, like, how do I do this again? Or how can I do this? So it's really transformed how we're able to deliver and provision accounts for the organization. It's truly changing. It was a big change for us, big win.
So Daniel, that's fantastic, and really appreciate you sharing that story. I guess one bit we missed a little bit earlier on. Are you able to give us sort of the elevator pitch of why you chose to go Citrix Cloud at the same time as you were looking at, or at the same time you were re-looking at why you were changing the way you were doing things?
Yeah, so the Citrix Cloud story there, and you're right, sorry, I did forget to mention that. The Citrix story there is really around two things. Number one is really to design a Citrix architecture that would have some agility. We are in the process of standing up another data center, and Citrix Cloud allows us to really gives us some flexibility in that design. And so that's the main reason. It's a lot easier to architect that by using Citrix Cloud than it is to do it in-house. That was the main reason there.
Look, absolutely. And when you think about what we're trying to achieve here, both Citrix Cloud and Atria reduce a lot of the administrative overhead that you have, so you can focus a lot more on enabling your team rather than, I guess, monitoring and fixing issues, right?
No, absolutely. We are now in the process of really training our team on how to use the tool and how to think systematically about these processes versus opening up Active Directory and remembering to add this person to that group and copying this user for this role. All of that nonsense is gone now.
Perfect. All right, so hearing that story, I mean, that's pretty compelling, right? If you're able to save 30 hours of help desk administration time a month, I mean, that's game changing. You can onboard new customers without having to add help desk staff. Potentially, you could double the size of your user base without having to grow your help desk at all. So what I'd like to do is take this opportunity to give you a little bit of an idea of how Atria helps with that, so that you can you come away with a little bit more of a practical idea. So Atria is a comprehensive control panel used by managed service providers to simplify provisioning and scaling of hosted and cloud workspaces, improving operating efficiency and reducing management costs. So when we boil it down to the sorts of things you're potentially hearing from your customers or even from your own internal team, it's really about how can I move faster? How can I take control of my own users? How can I take control of the resources that my users have without having to log a help desk ticket with you, without having to wait in line? And that becomes more and more important as you head down things like the Citrix Cloud route, because your customers are starting to expect that true software as a service, on-demand sort of model. And from your perspective, you don't want your guys tied up in admin. That's just cost. It's just cost, and it's slow. And ideally, when you are giving self-service or you are giving delegated administration, it's also about getting audit and cost reports. How do I stay in control? So Atria helps with all this. The portal itself gives the ability for end users to self-request access to applications and desktops, making that really speedy password, really speedy application delivery, that get it on demand when you need it. As well as some really simple nice to haves like resetting passwords. We've seen customers that have about 30% of their help desk calls are things like reducing help desk, things like resetting passwords. And the other 20% user create / access to applications, meaning up to 50% of help desk calls can be solved just by those two. But you still need to retain control, right? So fully built-in approval workflows through from actually being able to create the user through to individual applications, which can be approved by your team, or potentially, if it's cost related, teams within the actual customer. And all of this is done without any administrative privileges, meaning that none of those users have any escalation. So keeping security nice and tight, which is more and more critical these days. But self-service is only half the story. Honestly, we find the more compelling story is delegated administration. What Daniel mentioned was that HR, the HR department in his customers wanted role-based provisioning. So that's delegated administration. When HR is hiring somebody, they want to give them a role and have all of the services be given, all of the relevant services be given to that end user. So again, Atria enables that, where you can have either HR or team leaders or team management fully able to manage the applications and services that their end users have, while still leaving you as the CSP / MSP in complete control. You've automated the provisioning, you've created the roles, you know exactly what's happening, and you have cost and audit control in there as well, so that you're able to do accurate bill back. But you're enabling your customer to own the outcome. So they get to choose who does approvals on their side for cost control. They get transparent reporting, so they know who made those changes. And you get to pitch this to them as a benefit. No more waiting in a help desk queue. Create and manage your own users. Give them a Citrix desktop as the day they land without ever having to wait in the queue. Very powerful. So the big thing that we're managing here is a Citrix desktop, be it a VDI, be it a multi-session desktop. Ideally, you're running it in Citrix Cloud, so you're able to take advantage of the new levels of automation and scalability given to you there. But alongside that, we're also able to support you in managing on-premises or hosted Active Directories to, again, through the same portal, same user identities, being able to manage Azure Active Directory and Office 365. And if you're doing Citrix Cloud multi-tenant, we can support you with managing Office 365 against a Citrix Cloud multi-tenant environment as well. And within those environments, managing access to enterprise applications and resources, whether it's as simple as putting users in an AD group or managing access to SQL databases, or depending on what's happening, manage access to SaaS applications as well. So you can delegate all of this out to your customer to control in one seamless experience, making your hosted, either Citrix Cloud hosted, or even Citrix Cloud and your own hosted desktops, a really slick, seamless experience. So there's a few things you get out of the box. So user creates a really simple wizard, non-technical interface. You can give this to HR departments or team leaders, team management to be able to do. Assigning a VDI or assigning an application to a user is as simple as checking a box. Daniel's were and the Asbury applications were named really, really well, so they made sense for how they hired people. And so when you're working with your customers to onboard them, ideally you would be creating application and resource groups which were aligned with how your customers hire and manage their team as well, rather than technical names, which I guess is what my example here is. Self-service, once a user is created, they're able to log into the portal, request additional access to applications, and if the customer or yourself has chosen, with workflow approvals that can be given to the person's manager, could be given to, for example, the IT group, in case there does still happen to be something manual or some resource management that happens behind the scenes, or even up to finance if there's money involved, because money involved. And out the back of this, you get a full range of audit data, meaning that you know what every single user has been provisioned with, what they have access to, and you know who provisioned it, meaning that you can bill your customers accurately. And this becomes more and more important as you head into a consumption-based world. As Daniel mentioned, 125 new users and 50 changes in a period of, I think it was 3 months. I mean, that's, if you were managing all of that manually and expecting to do bill back, that's an absolute nightmare. And especially with services like desktops running on Azure, you need to bill your customer accurately, because if you're not billing them, then you're wearing that cost yourself. So I guess to highlight the point here again, Atria on Citrix Cloud, we can help you reduce your user administration overhead by up to 70%. So Daniel, I just wanted to ask, from your experience with Atria and Citrix Cloud, what was the difference between, I guess, when you started to kind of the end of deployment? If you were going to give us kind of a little bit of a, this is how it feels in the modern world.
So there's really two perspectives here. The perspective on the service desk was really, oh, all I have to do is read the form and check the box. So that was really a big win for the service desk. They're able to really deliver and complete the request much faster, which is great. And on the engineering side, it took a pivot for them to understand how things were done by leveraging Automate. But then it took a while to get there, but now people are starting to understand and see the value and see how we can now scale better with this framework.
Cool. Thanks very much, Daniel. So we'll be sending out this deck afterwards. Both Daniel from Asbury's email address and mine are on the bottom. So if you want to learn more about Atria, please feel free to get in touch with me. And Daniel's a strong member of the CSP community. So I'm sure if you have any questions, he'd be more than happy to speak to you. And so Rose, with that, were there any questions, or we're ready to wrap up?
We do have one question. If you do have any other questions, please put them in the chat now. So the question is, does the user have the ability to provision or request cloud or on-premises VDAs as a defined workflow?
So when you publish VDAs within Atria, you can publish cloud. You would basically just name them different things. So the short answer is yes. But it's not, I guess, workflow driven. It would be name driven. So you'd have a desktop called Cloud Desktop, and it might be running on Azure, and it might be pooled for scale up, scale down. And if you're provisioning dedicated desktops, you might have them on premises farm for cost control. And then they would choose which one they wanted, click provision, and then a workflow could be kicked off for approval. Does that answer the question?